All right, welcome to the Big Texas Podcast presented by Texas Young Republicans. I am your host, Jordan Overturf, and boy, that last week arrest was nice. Oh my gosh, Super Tuesday indeed. What a turnout in Texas. Certainly not beating any records by the mark, but impressive to see how many Republicans turned out to the ballot box, despite there not being a presidential primary really at the top of the ticket. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, Democrats barely eked out a voting advantage with one of the most hotly contested Democratic primaries probably since 2008. And yet here we are. The blue wave is still yet to be determined, but the clear message to Republicans across Texas right now is we have to get out and get active. I'm serious. If you have not connected with your local county Republican club, it's time to do that. Time to connect with your YR clubs, time to connect with candidates who are on their way to November. Now, yes, we got some runoffs coming up, and if you are a candidate who is in the May runoff on the Republican side of things, hit us up, Twitter and Instagram at Big Texas Podcast. We'd love to bring you onto the show, give you a chance to really talk to voters about what it was that attracted so many supporters to you on Super Tuesday and why you think you should be the winner in this upcoming runoff. So again, hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Big Texas Podcast, or make sure you are following Texas Young Republicans on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Texas YRs. My guest today is one of those Republicans who is in a targeted seat, but the other side of things, she is Luisa Del Rosal. I'm so sorry, Luisa. Luisa Del Rosal from House District 114. She's looking to take back the seat that was won by John Turner, a Democrat out of Dallas, who had a mediocre session, let's call it. He certainly didn't stand out, and I know that the voters in HD114 want to make sure they have a strong, active representative who is getting out there fighting the fight for their values and to make sure Texas continues to head in the right direction. So I had a great time talking to Luisa all about her campaign, her background, all the things that she's doing to get Republican voters to the ballot box in November. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Luisa Del Rosal. So, how long have you been on the campaign?
Since last June, so I've been for a while. It's been fun.
And you don't have anyone in the primary against you, right?
No, it's an unchallenged for Sid 114 in Northern Dallas, and it's really, I get just to take the fight to the Democrat.
There you go. Well, you get to spend a lot of time engaging with voters on your specific issues. That's great.
It is. And you know, one of the cool things about my district 114 is that the voters are just bread and butter issues. That's the things that they care about. So it's something I've been, talking about since June that there's no change in message. The message is the same. So that's exciting because I've been able to build already a platform of supporters because it's been a long time since I started running.
Excellent. Well, we're glad to see Republicans getting active in that district. For those who don't know about you, give us a quick rundown. What's your background and experience?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Luisa. Luisa for Texas is a website. So anybody that wants to follow around and read my website. And I actually have in my website a letter of why I'm a Republican. And I felt it was really important because my background is quite unique. I'm an immigrant. I'm originally from Mexico. I'm a millennial, Hispanic woman. So I'm all those demographics that people tend to think, a Republican. So it was really important for me that even though I have this very diverse background, that I remind folks that I am a proud Republican and always been, and that I've been living my life as a proud Republican in the greatest state, in the greatest country, and that all of a sudden, all those values that we hold so dear that make Texas so exceptional were coming under attack. And that's why I decided to run. And I love it. The campaign's my baby. I don't have children, so that's like my 24/7. And aside from that, I also run 2 research centers at a local university. And so public policy is my life, both through the campaign and during my day job.
So what type of research are you doing there?
So two very different kind of areas. One center focuses broadly on public policy, national security, political economy. And the other one is very near and dear to my heart. I actually founded the center, and it's on the Texas-Mexico relationship.
Excellent. Well, that's a big topic of discussion right now.
Isn't it?
So of all the things you just listed, I think millennial might be the thing to get people fired up the most, right? Why do you think that there is a misconception about millennials and young conservatives? You know, what is it that makes people automatically assume that young people like us are not connected with the Republican message, the conservative ideals?
Yeah, I think it is a misperception, because when you take away labels and you talk to any person who is a millennial or younger, and you say, hey, do you believe you should keep more of what you earn? Do you believe that personal responsibility and fiscal responsibility should reign? Do you understand the strength that comes from faith and family? Are these kind of values that you could align yourself with? I would argue that most millennials would say, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, those are Republican principles. And so I think it's a misconception, is a little bit of a branding issue that we've had. And that's why it's so important that people like you, people like other candidates that are millennials like myself, get out there and remind folks that we are proud Republicans. We might not be yelling it every single day, but that's because we're living our lives under Republican leadership, and it's pretty sweet.
And we don't all think like AOC.
No, not at all. No, I would argue that so many of us are just such hard workers that we wouldn't want anybody to give us a handout. We believe in hands up, and that's just completely contrary with the kind of the belief system of people like AOC. And that's my fear about the Texas House, is that there's a new crowd in Austin, and they're trying to sell that more government is the answer when it's not. And Republicans in Texas, we got to hold the line. We need to remind folks that the reason there's a Texas miracle and that more millennials are moving to Texas cities than any other place is because Republican leadership. And that's why we need to activate all of us YRs to get really mobilized behind a campaign we believe in. And I hope everybody mobilizes for my campaign, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And that's why we have you here, so they can learn about you and get active. HD114, what are some of the issues that voters are talking about there?
So HD114, and for, those that most people don't even know what the state house, number they belong to. So if you're in Lake Highlands, if you're in North Dallas, Preston Hollow, Midway Hollow, I would love to earn your vote and support you and represent you in Austin. The things that I've been knocking on doors since June, and it was really funny, in July and August of last year, people were like, what's going on? And I said, hey, I'm no one. So I need you to get to know me. And the things that are just typical everyday problems that all Americans have, the education, making sure that if they have young children, that they can have a proper education, innovative solutions in education, our economy, property taxes, that comes up a lot. And more questions about healthcare, just making it more transparent and accessible. So those are the three issues that I really talked about with folks, and that are really to the core of the district.
Mm-hmm. And those are a lot of nuts and bolts issues, right?
Absolutely.
Not a lot of social issues.
Bread and butter issues, there's a couple of social issues that come up, and I'm happy to always share what my beliefs are. But when I say, what are the things that people are really talking about? Education, number one, property taxes, number two.
So as you're talking about education and property taxes, those two go hand in hand in Texas.
Absolutely.
So what is your proposal to these voters, and what do you hope to achieve if you're elected to the Texas House?
Great. It's one of the things that I think we have two wonderful independent public school systems in Dallas ISD and Richardson ISD in 114. And I always kind of point out the innovative solutions that were driven by local values and local control. So making sure that there was already transformative reform and education reform in the last session around under Republican leadership, and that we can do more if, one, we are willing to give more local control back. Two, look at innovation and what choices are we providing for parents and communities. And I also remind them that when there was an opportunity for the incumbent Democrat, who, by the way, One, after we had almost 30 years of Republican leadership in 114, when there was a chance to reform property tax, or when there was a chance to look at education reform from like issues of merit paid for teachers, etc., he was one of the first ones to say no or vote against the property tax reform bill. So it's really easy now that I have a voting record to provide a contrast to say, we want local solutions because these are local problems, and we've seen leadership at the local level that we should implement statewide.
Do you think too many legislators at the state level get distracted by some of these more federal issues that have people fired up?
Absolutely. It's pretty easy, and sometimes people will say, oh, she's running for Congress. I'm like, nope. Not at all. And that's the cool thing of starting so early, is that I get to tell people, actually, the government that's closest to the people is more powerful and should be more important, and that's state government. We are a republic. That's funny how many times I have to remind people that we're a Republican, and then the state should be more powerful than the federal government. So no, it doesn't matter how sexy it seems. At the end of the day, the things that impact their pocketbook, their education, their transportation, these are local issues at the state level.
So have there been any issues coming up that you're out there, you're knocking on the door, and a voter says to you, this is my issue, that maybe caught you off guard or you were kind of surprised by?
Not yet. I think, again, this is a very thoughtful, kind of well-educated community. We have a really actually high voting record. People participate. So I get informed voters. Mostly it's the difference between state and federal that at times I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. That surprises me at times. But in terms of issues, when we're talking about issues, they are pretty well versed on, oh yeah, this is what the state is responsible for. I get a lot of complaints about cities and city overreach and what will I do? And I said, you know what? I will build strong relationships with city leaders if I get the privilege of representing you, so that we can talk. So if you call me, I know who to call.
Yeah, and that's been a big part of the discussion. More and more is local control versus creating statewide regulations that impact business, education, right, to really make the state more cohesive. Right? Do you believe that we need more solutions coming from the legislature, or should we maybe pump the brakes on that and allow more cities to kind of create this patchwork of regulations?
No, I think we have to separate what is local control versus city control. When we talk about local control, we're talking about people. We're talking about families. We're talking about communities, and them really being the ones we're representing when we get to represent people in Austin. Because one of my concerns is that sometimes these cities overreach, and that's not local control. That's just government overreach. And I definitely think that that's a place where state government needs to make sure it's monitoring cities over that overreach. But can we allow schools, principals to have a voice in when we're looking at transformational education reforms? We need to make sure they have a voice, that we're the closest to the people when we're talking. That's local control. That doesn't mean giving cities all the control, because if you give us a little, they'll take a lot.
Yeah. Well, and we certainly saw that in the property tax issue, as cities fought back and said, we can't take this crushing regulation. And then you see kind of what they do in response to the legislature. Right. They turn around and continue to thumb their nose at what we're trying to achieve for the people that they serve as well.
Exactly. I mean, think of simple examples. Talking to a local leader, talking about in the last 10 years, the city of Dallas budget has grown over 40%, and yet the city of Dallas doesn't feel safer. And, our sidewalks are not better. Things of that nature there are city issues that I'm like, what's going on? And that's where I always will say, okay, that's when the overreach happened and the services didn't follow.
So you talked about watching our values come under attack, and that was kind of one of the reasons that you got into this race. Right. But is there a specific issue that you feel passionate about that you would want to undertake in the legislature?
Two that I'm super passionate about: pro-business values. Those are, especially at the national level, again, this whole government creating jobs. Government does not create jobs. Government gets out of the way so that people and industry can create jobs. And the attack is on the small business owner and infringing on the small business owner and their ability to succeed. That to me, I'm super passionate of what I can do for small businesses to ensure that they succeed. Because they are the backbone of our economy. So making sure that Texas remains to lead in that aspect. My opponent just got a failing grade from the NFIB. Again, because it doesn't represent the values of a community that is very small business driven. Mm-hmm. And number two, education. I mean, I think that one of the reasons that we have all these kooky ideas about democratic socialism, is because we, at the education level, we haven't focused on teaching some bread and butter things like financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Like, what does a paycheck mean? And, how do government actually works? And so to me, financial literacy and civics education, and to an extent, world history, because we also know that socialism has failed. We know it. Yeah. So we can't let our lack of making people aware that these models have failed, to me is really sad. Again, as an immigrant, as somebody who's seen the difference of a free and fair society, I get so mad because what has been built in the United States is exceptional and we must protect it. And I think it comes with teaching education, financial literacy, civics. We got to participate. Texas has to do better in terms of people going to vote and conservatives going to vote and voting on values and principles, not on personalities.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been in high school, but I think it was a semester of economics. That's all it takes. We spend a ton of time, going through history. I spend a ton of time in English and math, very important. But this thing that kind of functions of how we work our everyday life.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You can graduate today from a Texas high school with only Algebra 1. And just that is to me shocking when most, whether it's, 2-year colleges or 4-year colleges, require a higher degree of education. And to me, it's not even you need calculus, but you need to understand how to budget. I mean, do you remember having a budget class? No.
I took that economics class and that was about it.
That's about it. And civics education is no longer taught. It's not mandatory curriculum. That's the other thing, because people are like, oh, but financial literacy exists. I'm like, yes, but it's not mandatory curriculum.
Yeah. And that
should be.
Well, in government classes is another one that's a semester.
Exactly. How is that enough? How is that enough?
Well, apparently it's enough to make everyone experts, right?
Mm-hmm. It is enough to get people. I mean, you hear also candidates at the federal level, especially Democrats, that are talking about issues that are state issues. I'm like, so you can't do anything about that, but sure, get your base fired up. And that's where I think education really comes to play.
Yeah, that 10th Amendment gets a little pesky for some folks at the federal level.
It really does.
So I don't like to get into identity politics, but it is hard to escape the fact that you are a Republican candidate who happens to be a woman. From that side of things, what are the conversations that you are having with other young women as you discuss party, ideology? And what do you think where do we need to steer the conversation so that we get more young folks understanding that, whatever their idea is of Republican, it's more conservative principles that define who we are as individuals.
Right, exactly. It shouldn't matter, but it does matter to have more women running. So I am excited that not only am I running, but that we have more women running than in a long time. And so right now, I think there's only 9 women in the Texas House and Republican women. And I think we used to have 16. So, it's important to see ourselves as champions of the values, right? It's harder for somebody to tell me that Republicans are racist or anti-women, anti-immigrant, anti-young people, because then they have to tell that to me.
Yeah.
Right? As an immigrant, a young person, a Hispanic woman. So it's harder. So then people have to have actual conversations with me, right? I had a person was knocking on their door. He opened the door. He was really mad at Republicans. He was. And I saw his primary voting history. I saw that he had Republican primary voting history. And he's like, no, all Republicans are racist. And I said, I'm originally from Mexico. And he paused. And he's like, huh, okay. And he listened. That shouldn't be the case. However, it helps. So the conversation should be that we should be supporting candidates that come from diverse backgrounds because the party is diverse. We do have diverse people. We just need to empower them. And with women particularly, it takes more for women to run. So I think you have to ask women 9 times before they actually, like, we know that through research. Men have to hear it once. And so we need to get better with telling. I know.
I think we're a simpler creature. Yeah. We're a lot easier to convince. Hey, there's a hill. Go storm it.
Go do it.
Yes, sir.
Just sir. And the funny part is that actually women raise more money than men. We've seen it. Again, this is research, all backed up by research. So we just need to get to telling all the amazing Republican women in our life to say, one, get behind every candidate, the women and the men who love us. And if you are interested, let me give you a place for your voice so that others can say there's no women in the party. Because I just came from the Texas Federation of Republican Women Leadership Day. It is packed with proud Republican women. We have to give them all a podium. Maybe not always running, but we need them at the forefront of our leadership and our conversations. So it's harder to accuse us of things that we are not.
Well, I know as someone who works in campaigns that Republican women are the hardest working people I know. So
they get it done.
Yeah, they do. It's hard to escape some of the national stuff that's going on. When you are met with that at the door, how do you get people to come down off of their emotions and refocus on the issues that do affect their lives? Like how do you rein them in and say, this is an election that's going to have more an impact on what it happens with your property taxes, with your family, your education, your business? How do you get them to focus back on these kinds of races?
Number one, I always say, hey, I'm here representing Luisa for Texas. And I want to earn your vote. There's something about telling people that I want to earn it that really gets people to listen, even however angry they are. And number two, I always say, I'm only asking you to show up for me. And because I can only guarantee what I am willing to do and serve. And that also then focuses the conversation to, okay, what's the individual in front of me? Now, if they give me a chance, I say, well, vote Republican up and down the ticket. Remember, no straight party voting anymore. But I do think we need to get back to running, hey, I am the individual. I'm putting myself out there. I'm trying to make a difference for us. What do you care about? I always start my conversations at the door with the people that are like giving me more time or even yelling at me. Because that happens. People yell at you more than than people imagine. Also, then they're surprised that I'm the candidate because I'm smiling so happy. After they yelled at me. And so if you remind them that you're there to serve them, that it's an individual conversation, then they'll give you the time of day. That's at least how I do it. I want to represent you. I want you to show up for me. Then what can I do for you? Where do we connect?
Do you have any advice for young women out there who are starting to entertain the idea of running for office? Anything that you've learned so far in this campaign that you could pass along to them?
Yes. Find your champions. So, and I'll be their champion. Call me and I'll figure it out. And, this is something I'm really passionate about, but find your champions, and our champions don't always have to be women. I have several mentors and people that open the door for me that are men and, are so supportive, but you have to find those people. And this is different from mentors. Champions are those that will raise a hand and say, hey, I'm going to open that door for you. I'm going to put my name on the line for you. So find those people, and those can be, very varied. There can be people that have no experience or any political connections. They can just be people that write you checks. Because as a candidate, that matters a lot. So if you have, money in your pocket in a campaign, even if you're a newbie, people will pay attention, and then you'll get people talking about you. So find those champions and don't be afraid. We are well prepared as women to run for office, just because we are members of this thriving society. Just that you're going to represent people. You're a person? Excellent. Let's get out there.
So what is another misconception of the party that you've had to go out and kind of debunk? You fit into so many different categories, right? That it seems like you are the opposition to that mainstream narrative.
It's super fun. I can't, it's fun because I just can't wait. We were talking about, we're going to do this candidate forum, and, there's this lengthy thing about, there's going to be an interpreter there to speak Spanish. And I'm like, well, I don't need one. I can't wait to answer questions in Spanish. So the other thing that I always have to overcome is the fact that I'm Hispanic or that I'm an immigrant, and why, how could I be? And I always remind people to look at actions, not words. I was raised that way, and that my actions always speak louder than my words. And I said, what are the things that will make your life better? And most of those initiatives are Republican or conservative initiatives. And that's another message that I'm working really well. Like, I'm going to have a town hall, and it's going to be mostly conservative leaders, self-identified Republicans, and their business leaders. So we're just going to talk, and it's going to be all in Spanish. And we're going to talk about why we're conservative. So we also have to... something to dispel, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So many times I am the only Republican in the room, and that's okay, because it helps, again, change perceptions. And that at the national level, I think it's been great, and at the state level, to remind folks that there are a lot of Hispanic Republicans. And so that's another piece that I feel I'm taking the banner for, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Do you think Democrats assume too much in terms of who their supporters should be?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because everybody's up for grabs if you show up. That's just how it works. I mean, again, if you show up to somebody's door, even if they're, especially if they're a swing voter or they're not sure, they'll like that you're there. So I think people assume that when you're a person of color, or if you're an immigrant, or if you're a woman, of course you're going to vote. So then they might not put the work in. And I think you need to put the work in. And as Republicans, this 2020, we're ready to put the work in.
So as you're looking down the line, you don't have a primary, so you're looking to the general, and you've got some time to introduce yourself to voters. But I just want to give you a second to talk directly to the voters in House District 114. What is your message to them, and where should their focus be in 2020?
So their focus should be on the things that matter the most to us. So I always say, keep, family and faith in your work. But if you have a sliver of time to participate in this amazing experiment that is the United States of America and the greatest state in this union, which is Texas, please take the time to visit my website, luisafortexas.com, my Facebook page, Luisa Del Rosal. Very complicated, so just go to Luisa for Texas. You'll find everything else. I have Instagram and Twitter, and you'll see that I'm running for a very simple reason, and that is because Texas is exceptional, and that's because of Republican leadership, and that we have to make sure we participate and keep this great, great gift that we were giving to be Americans. And for those that weren't born here like me, but got here as fast as I could, I got here, followed the rules, became a U.S. citizen, we know the difference between a free and fair society. So remember that when you go vote. Give me a chance. I'll be at your door. Give me a call. I'll pick up. And I know that what we share is greater than anything, and that is a passion for our family, for our faith, and for our country. So check out my website.
Excellent. Why don't you go ahead and give those details one more time?
Yes. Luisa, and that's Luisa for Texas.com. Check out the website. I have both Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So you can follow all the campaign activities there.
Excellent. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and maybe we can bring you back in before November.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right. Thank you again to Luisa for joining us. Thank you for listening. As always, we are continuing the good fight. We are going to be bringing on more candidates, as many as possible between now and November. Again, we're focusing on the folks who are in a runoff right now, but we're not being discriminatory either. We got more candidates that we've already talked to, some folks who are actually don't have a challenger in November, but we still want to be talking about the issues that are driving Republicans and what it's going to take to make sure that we win big in November. Again, the goal here is to keep Texas red and keep Texas moving forward in the right direction. I don't know if you saw last week, actually it's a couple weeks by now, Governor Abbott accepted the 8th consecutive Governor's Cup for economic development. Out of all 50 states that compete for this thing for 8 years in a row, Texas has captured the Governor's Cup. So thank you to Governor Abbott. Thank you to TexLeg. Thank you to you. You are the people that are out there working hard, making Texas a great place to live, work, raise a family, do all of the things that we love here in Texas. And we want to keep that going. So make sure you keep tuning in. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Big Texas Podcast. If you're listening on Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you hit the subscribe and leave us a rating. It does great for helping get the podcast up so more people see it, more people are listening, getting engaged, taking part in the process. So thank you again, friends. Until next time, we'll see you down the road.